My wife came home from work, stared me dead in the eyes, and said, "I'm sleeping with my boss. If you can't handle it, we should get divorced." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just smiled, and quietly started planning how to destroy her case before she could take half of everything. His name was Marcus, and on paper he had the kind of life most people dream about. He worked as a senior project manager at a tech firm in the heart of the city, making the kind of money that paid for a modern high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a glittering skyline at night. Every evening, he'd come home to the place they'd built together. Minimalist furniture, framed photos from their honeymoon in Santorini, and a kitchen island where they planned weekend brunches and late-night conversations about their future. His wife, Elena, was a marketing director at a corporate firm, ambitious and driven, and he loved that about her. They'd been married for 5 years, and Marcus believed they were building something real, a partnership, a home, a life worth protecting. But over the past few months, something had shifted. Elena started coming home later, her phone always face down on the counter, and the warmth in her voice was replaced by clipped answers and distant stares. Marcus told himself it was work stress, that she'd come back to him once things settled down. He had no idea how wrong he was. Marcus had always been the kind of man who showed love through quiet consistency, remembered coffee orders, fixed things before they broke, and stayed late at work so the mortgage was never a worry. He treated people with a calm, patient respect, from the interns in his office to the old doorman who liked to joke that Marcus and Elena were the perfect couple. On their last anniversary, Marcus spent weeks sneaking around for the right reasons, booking a small rooftop restaurant with soft golden lights and a view of the city, hiding a handwritten note in her napkin about how proud he was of the life they were building. There were nights when he'd sit at the dining table under the warm glow of the pendant lamp, scrolling through banking apps and spreadsheets, cutting back on his own hobbies so they could save for a bigger place or the kids they talked about one day. While he typed late-night emails, she'd lie on the couch with her head in his lap, and they'd talk in low voices about trips to Europe, starting a business together, maybe buying a house with a garden. The apartment smelled of her vanilla candles and his favorite takeout. The TV murmured in the background, and everything felt safe, familiar, and theirs. But slowly, the details began to shift. Her phone, once left charging on the counter, now lived face down and locked, buzzing with messages she'd silence with a quick, tight smile. "Just work," she'd say, already turning away down the hallway. Business trips that used to be rare suddenly popped up on the calendar, rushed and last minute, leaving him alone at the window with lukewarm coffee, watching taillights disappear into the night. Shopping bags from high-end boutiques appeared in the closet, designer heels, a new perfume that smelled sharp and expensive, things that didn't quite match the budget they'd so carefully planned. Marcus brushed it off at first, telling himself she deserved nice things, that her career was just getting busier, that every marriage went through phases. He kept cooking her favorite pasta, kept folding her laundry with practiced hands, kept leaving little notes on the fridge before he left for work. On the surface, their life still looked picture-perfect, 2 plates on the table, shared laughter when friends came over, framed vacation photos lining the hallway. Underneath, though, something fragile had started to crack, and he was the last one trying not to hear it. Marcus was standing at the sink, rinsing 2 coffee mugs, when he heard the soft click of the apartment door closing behind her. She didn't kick off her heels or drop her bag like she usually did. Instead, she walked straight into the kitchen, perfume sharp in the air, eyes strangely calm. For a second, all he heard was the hum of the fridge and the drip of water from the tap. Then she folded her arms, tilted her head, and said, "I'm sleeping with my boss. If you can't handle it, maybe we should get divorced." The mug slipped a little in his hand, ceramic scraping against the sink as his fingers went numb. His chest tightened, like the room had shrunk around him, and the steady sounds of the apartment, traffic outside, a neighbor's TV, faded into a dull, distant buzz. He stared at her lips moving, but the words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and unreal, as if time had snagged on that one sentence. For a heartbeat, he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only feel that cold, hollow drop in his stomach that tells you nothing will ever be the same again. Every instinct in Marcus's body screamed at him to explode. For a split second, he saw himself hurling the mug against the wall, shouting, demanding every detail of how long, how often, and why. His throat burned with all the questions he wanted to spit out, and his vision tunneled around her calm, almost bored expression. But instead of giving her that chaos, he swallowed it. He took a slow breath, set the mug down carefully, and managed a flat, almost mechanical, "Okay." If that's how you feel, we'll figure it out." On the outside, he looked like a man shutting down, too stunned to argue. He nodded while she talked about needing space and doing what's best, pretending to agree just enough to keep the peace. Inside, though, something icy and focused clicked into place. That same night, while she showered, he quietly noted the time of her late meetings in his phone. Over the next days, he started taking photos of unexplained receipts, saving copies of bank statements, and forwarding suspicious emails to a hidden folder. At breakfast, he still asked about her day, still kissed her cheek, still loaded the dishwasher like nothing had changed. Only now, every polite smile was a mask, and every casual question was another piece in the case he was building against her. The first real blow came a week later, waiting on the kitchen counter, a thick white envelope with his name on it and the quiet weight of finality inside. At the dining table, under the same warm light where they'd once planned vacations, he unfolded the papers and saw her neat signature and the demand in black and white. She wanted half of everything, including the apartment and savings he had sacrificed years to build. She walked past in a crisp blazer and new heels, glanced at the envelope, and said, almost casually, "This is the cleanest way for both of us." He didn't argue. He just pressed his lips together, nodded once, and felt something inside him lock into place. That night, when the apartment was dark and her sharp new perfume still clung to the air, he sat alone at his desk with his laptop open and a small stack of printed pages beside it. Hotel confirmations with her name on them, transaction alerts from unfamiliar restaurants, overlapping work trip dates, and credit card charges that didn't match any story she'd told. He slipped old bank statements into labeled folders, photographed receipts before sliding them back into her purse, and forwarded suspicious messages to a hidden email account. During the day, he booked quiet meetings with a lawyer and a financial advisor, listening carefully as they explained his options while he laid out the proof, piece by piece. At home, nothing changed on the surface. He still cooked dinner, still asked, "How was your day?" Still stacked her new shopping bags neatly by the wardrobe. She laughed louder, dressed sharper, and came home smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his, already acting like half his life was hers by right. Marcus answered with small, steady smiles, but behind his eyes, every new purchase, every late night, every lie was being carefully added to the growing case that would one day turn all of her confidence into shock. Marcus's decision came on a quiet night at the dining table, long after she'd gone to bed and the apartment had settled into heavy silence. He sat with the divorce papers in front of him and the folder of evidence at his elbow. Messages, statements, hotel bookings, all neatly organized. For weeks he'd been absorbing blow after blow, reacting, enduring, pretending not to see what was right in front of him. That night, he stopped being the man things just happened to. He straightened the stack of documents, looked at her looping signature on the last page, and said in his head, clear and steady, "No. You don't get to betray me and walk away richer." He decided he would not shout, not beg, not warn her. He would let her feel safe right up until the moment the truth landed in front of a judge. From that moment, his actions had a sharp purpose. Every screenshot, every printout, every quiet meeting with his lawyer became part of a deliberate plan. Hold his ground in court and expose not just the affair, but the hidden accounts and unexplained spending she'd tried to bury. The risk was brutal and real. If his evidence wasn't strong enough, if something was thrown out or dismissed, he could lose the apartment, a huge chunk of his savings, and whatever dignity he had left. Worse, she would walk away not only unpunished, but rewarded for what she'd done. Knowing that, he doubled down on preparation, choosing cold strategy over rage, and stepping fully into the role of a man who would rather gamble everything on the truth than quietly let his life be carved in half. The courtroom was colder than Marcus expected. Fluorescent lights buzzing softly above, polished wooden benches, and the low murmur of other cases fading as their names were called. He took his seat at the petitioner's table in a dark suit, documents neatly stacked in front of him, while Elena sat opposite in a tailored dress, legs crossed, her lawyer leaning in to whisper something that made her smirk. Behind her, in the second row, sat her boss, expensive watch, bored expression, scrolling his phone like this was just another meeting. When the judge finally looked up and said, "We'll now address the matter of asset division," the room seemed to tighten around Marcus's chest, but his hand stayed steady on the table. Elena's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a hard-working wife who supported the marriage and now simply wanted a fair split. Marcus listened without interrupting, eyes on the grain of the wooden desk, letting each word roll past. When it was his turn, he stood, smoothed his tie, and spoke in a calm, even tone that didn't match the storm he'd carried for weeks. "Your Honor," he said, "before any decision on division is made, there are a few facts the court should see." His lawyer handed over the first folder: printed messages, hotel bookings, photos of her and her boss together on nights she'd claimed to be out of town for work. Then the second: bank statements showing transfers to a hidden account, purchases and nights out charged to joint funds, all marked and dated. For a moment, the only sound was the quiet turning of pages as the judge read, eyebrows slowly drawing together. Elena shifted in her seat, color draining from her face as she recognized the messages, the receipts, the timestamps. Her lawyer leaned toward her, whispering urgently now, but her eyes were locked on one printed text where she'd written, in her own words, that she was using his money to enjoy a real man's time. Her boss sat a little straighter in the pew behind, the casual boredom gone, fingers tightening around his phone. The judge cleared their throat, glanced at Marcus, then at Elena. "Mrs. Adeyemi," they said, voice firmer, "these records indicate sustained infidelity and financial misconduct during the marriage, funded in large part by joint assets." The air seemed to leave the room. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it again as the judge continued, outlining how her behavior would affect any claim to Marcus's property and savings. When the ruling came, it was simple and devastating. She would not receive the half she demanded. The apartment stayed with Marcus, and her financial claim was reduced to almost nothing. A pen slipped from Elena's fingers and hit the table with a small, sharp clatter that echoed louder than it should have. She stared down at the judgment papers as if they were written in another language, eyes glassy, lips parted but speechless. Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping for the first time in months, like he'd been carrying a weight only he knew was there. As court was adjourned and everyone began to stand, Elena stayed frozen in her seat, clutching an empty handbag that suddenly meant nothing, while Marcus walked past her without a word and pushed open the heavy courtroom door into the bright light outside. Outside the courthouse, the consequences started hitting before the echo of the judge's words had even faded. Elena stepped onto the steps with her lawyer at her side, phone already in her hand, only to see the first card decline. If you've ever wanted quiet justice after being betrayed, share your story in the comments. I want to know what you would have done in his place. If you believe in staying calm, gathering your strength, and letting the truth speak for itself, hit like and share this with someone who needs that reminder. And if you want more stories of hidden revenge and hard-earned peace, subscribe so you don't miss the next twist.